Forget the romanticized versions of the Victorian era you've seen in movies. Forget the grand ballrooms, the polite society, and the sparkling tea parties of the West End. I want you to step into the real London of 1888. Take a deep breath. Immediately, your lungs burn. The air is thick, choking, and tastes faintly of sulfur and raw coal. This is the pea-souper, a suffocating, dense yellow fog created by millions of coal fires mixing with the natural mist of the River Thames. It is a fog so thick it literally blots out the sun, turning midday into a claustrophobic twilight. You cannot see your own hands in front of your face. Welcome to the capital of the largest empire the world has ever seen. In 1888, London is the center of global finance, trade, and industry. It is a city of unparalleled wealth and technological marvels. But it is also a city hiding a rotting, festering core. As you walk away from the glittering mansions of Mayfair and cross into the East End, the illusion of civilization shatters. You are now in Whitechapel. The first thing that hits you is the noise. It is a deafening, relentless roar. Iron-rimmed cartwheels strike the uneven cobblestones. Street vendors scream over one another, selling everything from rotting fish to cheap gin. Crying children dart between the legs of exhausted laborers, and beneath it all is the constant, rhythmic thumping of industrial machinery from the sweatshops and factories that run day and night. Then there is the smell. In 1888, London's infrastructure is completely buckling under the weight of its exploding population. Nearly 5 million people are crammed into this city. In the East End, open sewers still flow through some alleyways. The stench of human waste mixes with the sharp, metallic smell of slaughterhouses, the sour reek of cheap breweries, and the putrid odor of the Thames River, which, despite recent engineering efforts, is still largely an open, toxic drain. Living here is not about building a future. It is a desperate, daily struggle simply to not die. If you are poor in London in 1888, your life is a nightmare of exploitation. Walk past the docks, and you will see the mudlarks, children, some as young as 5 years old, wading waist-deep in the freezing, toxic mud of the Thames, desperately scavenging for bits of dropped coal, old ropes, or rusted metal, just to earn a single penny to buy a crust of bread. Look inside the massive matchstick factories. Here, young girls work 14-hour shifts, dipping wooden sticks into white phosphorus. It is a deadly job. The toxic fumes slowly eat away at their jawbones, a horrific industrial disease known as phossy jaw. Their teeth fall out, their faces become disfigured, and eventually, the poison reaches their brains. And for this deadly sacrifice, they are paid mere pennies a day. Housing is an absolute luxury. In the slums of Spitalfields and Whitechapel, entire families of 8 or 10 people live in a single, damp, windowless room. But they are the lucky ones. For the absolute poorest, the only refuge from the freezing streets is the common lodging houses, known as rookeries. Step inside one of these dark, cavernous rooms. For 4 pennies, you can rent a filthy, lice-infested bed for the night. If you only have 2 pennies, you pay for the hangover. You don't get a bed. Instead, you sit on a long wooden bench, and a thick rope is tied tightly across the room in front of you. You lean forward, rest your arms and head on the rope, and sleep suspended in a row with dozens of other desperate souls. At 6 o'clock in the morning, a brutal landlord simply unties the rope, dropping everyone face first onto the wooden floor. Morning has arrived. Get out and find work. This crushing poverty breeds a desperate kind of coping mechanism. The East End is flooded with blue ruin, cheap, highly toxic gin. There is a pub on nearly every corner offering the only source of warmth, light, and temporary escape from the misery of reality. Men, women, and children alike drink to numb the hunger and the cold. Violence is not an anomaly here, it is the native language. Street fights, robberies, and brutal assaults are so common that the overworked Metropolitan Police rarely even bother to investigate unless someone is dead. But in the late summer and autumn of 1888, the underlying hum of daily misery in London abruptly shifts into something entirely different. It shifts into pure, paralyzing terror. As the sun sets, the lamplighters move through the streets, igniting the dim, flickering gas lamps. But the gaslight barely penetrates the thick, swirling fog. It only creates long, distorted shadows that dance on the brick walls. The labyrinth of narrow, winding alleyways in Whitechapel suddenly feels like a trap. Every footstep echoing on the cobblestones behind you makes your heart pound. A shadow has fallen over the city. A phantom is stalking the darkest corners of the East End. By August of 1888, the women of Whitechapel, specifically the vulnerable women who are forced to sell themselves on the streets just to pay for a bed in the lodging houses, are being hunted. The murders are not just brutal, they are surgical, silent, and deeply theatrical. Panic sweeps through the city like a wildfire. The press, realizing the power of sensationalism, fuels the hysteria, printing lurid, blood-red headlines that sell millions of copies. The citizens of London realize they are dealing with something completely unprecedented. This isn't a drunken brawl or a robbery gone wrong. This is a monster operating with total impunity right under the noses of the police. Vigilante committees are formed. Men patrol the streets with heavy wooden clubs and torches. Women refuse to leave their homes after dark. Every stranger in a long black coat, every man carrying a dark leather bag, is suddenly a suspect. The name Jack the Ripper is whispered in the pubs, screamed by the newsboys on the corners, and discussed in the highest halls of Parliament. He exposes the deep, festering wounds of the city. The wealthy West End can no longer ignore the East End, because the blood of the East End is now splashing onto the front pages of their morning newspapers. To be in London in 1888 is to stand at the crossroads of human extreme. It is a city of unparalleled brilliance and devastating darkness. A place where the greatest engineering marvels of the century stand just miles away from medieval squalor. It is a city wrapped in fog, fueled by coal, and paralyzed by fear. You can feel the cold dampness in your bones. You can smell the decay in the air. And as the gas lamps flicker in the mist, you can't help but look over your shoulder, wondering what is waiting for you in the shadows.